Hey, everybody. How are we all? Now, I apologize. My computer is going really, really slow today. But who have we got here? Tabby, I was just talking to her. She's going to be back up in a second. Hi, Iris, beautiful Mrs. T, Aussie Girl Jen, my beautiful Van, Angie. I have got Nightbot going. I'm hoping it's going to be behaved, but if I have to remove it, I will. It's my first time using it. But yeah. Dave G, hi. I think I've Matt Willis. It's good to see everybody here. So I know everyone's covered this, but I just wanted to do it as well. And I did ask Tabby because I was actually watching Tabby's and she brought my attention to Dylan. Since then, in between all of my medical records, because they've been crazy, it's all I've been doing is having my head into this case. So yeah. Now, medically, I'll just put this there because I know I have shared this. I have been to the medical panels. I've had 2 appointments with them. We now have till the 28th of this month for them to give us an answer. Hang on, I'll just copy it for you. To give us an answer, and I mean, they can come sooner. It could take the whole 4 weeks, but I can guarantee it's going to be the longest 4 weeks of my life. But as soon as I hear anything, I will let everybody know. So we're just all keeping fingers crossed. I think it went well. It was hard because I'm very emotional about it, and obviously they didn't want the emotions. They just wanted the facts and that, so we can understand that. Okay, I'm just put the link for Tabby, and I'm just going to bring this up. So I'm sure we've all heard of Dylan by now. What I'm going to try and do is we're going to try and break the timeline down a bit smaller for us all so we can all talk about it. Most of this is the official one that the parents have done. I do have some notes, a lot of the notes as well from the PI, but I do know he's been given a cease and assist. So when it's from the PI, we'll say it's from the PI and you can take it or leave it. I don't know where to go with that, but he has had a lot of interviews and he has brought a lot of stuff out that we at least need to talk about. Certain things that changed the case. Hey, my beautiful Tabby, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Excited to finally be working with you.
Yeah, me too. I've been excited the whole time.
So, yeah, so we'll just go through this. Obviously, we know Dylan was 19 when he went missing. We're still a bit unsure on the day that he went missing, but we'll go through the timeline and explain that. He was 5'10", and he was 160 lbs with brown hair and brown eyes. I'm gonna play. I've made a little stream up, so what it is, I'll play it first so we all get to see who it is who we're talking about. It's going to be some things of Dylan, and at the end it's some videos, just some pictures of the area that we're going to be talking about today, but it will give you some kind of concept of where Dylan went missing. that's just about the end of it. So this is Dylan. Basically, Dylan was 19 years old and he was working and living on a farm in Lucin in Utah. And I believe it's near the border of Nevada. He's now been missing. He was last seen on the 26th of May and he was last heard of on the 28th. So I do, as we all know, I love my timelines. So this is Dylan. He was 19, living and working on his farm in basically everything I just said. Just jump in whenever you're ready to, Jackie, if I'm saying something you want to talk about. So he grew up in Idaho with a brother and a sister. His parents divorced when he was 4 years old and split. His time in between Idaho Falls and the Twin Falls, he was always avid outdoor kid. This is from his mum, and a keen interest in his farming. In 2019, Dylan's grandfather had purchased land in Lucin, and Dylan took care of the land, cultivating the crop, and started living alone in the camper on the property. During the phone calls prior to May 28th, Dylan had exclaimed his excitement for his first crop this year. Dylan was running the farm mostly alone, but had some outside help from a few people. I know that's gone really small now, hasn't it? So I just want to start by talking about a few of the key players that we're going to talk about as we go through the timeline. There is a Don, I think it was Don H, if I believe, but Dylan was working with him and did fire him. I've heard some things that it was a couple of days prior to him going missing, and other notes I've heard as far as 3 weeks. So I'm not sure when he actually got fired.
Wasn't that the one that was living on the property?
He was one that was working. It wasn't the one that got arrested the other day. Don H, he was a friend of the grandfather's, and he was working for Dylan on the farm.
Okay, because there was one that was squatting on the property in like a shed or a building.
Yeah, that's James Brenner.
James Brenner, okay.
Yeah, so James was another one that I think was working on the farm. I'm not sure. But, yeah, he was the one that we'll get into later that was arrested. I'm sure we've all heard of the Wadsworths. We've been listening to this case. So there's Kurt. Troy is his brother. I think he has another brother named Scott as well. And I know he does have a son as well. So I'm not sure of the age of Don, but I know Kurt is in his 60s. So is Troy. Just trying to read this. It's because I've gone really small. So Troy also, as we talk about it, he has he's got a history of where he had kidnapped some ladies. Again, this is coming from the PI, but there has been other locals that have backed it up on some of their interviews that he took 2 ladies and put them in a house or a shed. I'm not quite sure. Took their shoes off and left them locked up there. We've also got Chase. Now, Chase is another one that plays a big part in it because when we get to the part about the phone call, Dylan rang his mum and told his mum that there was a bloody man on the side of the road with no shoes on, that wanted a lift or something. Wanted a lift, and that was Chase. So he's also played a bigger part as we go through it. And Chase has a 17-year-old son. I find it really weird, the ages of all these people, how they're all like in their like late 50s and 60s, and Dylan's 19.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very alarming.
Yes. This is kind of like the Summer Wells case. There's so many different characters to go through, and so many. Is that me echoing? And so many
No,
weird
I can't.
situations. You know, I don't know if this one will be solved quickly, but hopefully it will be solved.
I'm hoping. And when we're talking about Lucerne, we're talking about a town, and I've got so much in my head about this, so I'm just blurting things out. I'm sorry. But we're talking about a town of about 70 people. So there's not a lot of people in the town. I think a lot of them would be like spread out as well, because when you're looking at the pictures, it looks like that.
See, Nightbot is deleting comments.
Okay. 2 seconds, and we'll remove.
I had to do the same thing. I had to delete him really quick because Nightbot was blacking all my people.
I'm sorry. Hang on. I'm still trying to work him out, so I'll just.
I know, I haven't even put him back in because I'm too afraid to.
Again, my computer's just going so slow.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, I've got him to leave the channel, so he should behave now. Okay. I'm trying to see what I wrote there. So I've got, this is some of the PI's insights. There were several sex offenders also in the area. So again, we're talking about a town of 70 people, and Jimmy, I think, yeah, there's a fair few of them that have records that I've seen. Okay, so I'm going on about the visual. So also out in this area, because all the farms are so far apart, there is talk of there being a visual, like policing their own farms. So there was some people, and it's said to say that Kurt, and I think Dylan, and who else was in it? I've had a memory blank of the other guy's name. Chase, were in this visual group where they were policing their own farms. Again, this came from the PI, but it has been backed up by a few people. And when I'm saying backed up, it's the interviews from locals that have came out and said it was true. I do believe there was also an interview with one of the neighbours that said at night, if you get out of your car and you're in the wrong spot, you could be shot at as well. So they police in the area trying to keep people off the farms. I suppose the squatting was a problem and stealing stuff off the farms.
Yeah, and being out in the middle of nowhere, people think they can get away with it.
I also don't think there was any police in the town either. I think that's another reason why they were policing the farms the way they were. And it is one of the theories, like, obviously we don't know what's happened to Dylan yet, but it is one of the theories is, did he get out at the wrong spot and accidentally get policed by one of the other ones? I'm not sure if they stuck together when they done that. So starting the timeline was back in April. there was a disagreement that took place between Dylan and Don. As I said, he was a family friend. He helped on the farm. Don was questioning Dylan's decisions to work on a washing machine and with the pumps and everything. And as a result, Dylan and Don decided to part company. That was in Judy Ron's interview. But as I said, I'm not quite sure if it was a couple of days or a couple of weeks before Dylan went missing, because I've heard both. So Wednesday, May 25th, Dylan tells his mum about a strange encounter with some guy who was barefoot and bloody along the road and who wanted a ride to Montello. This person was later identified as Chase, and that again, I've just put where I've got this information from. So, do you know what I mean? But yeah, that was again on Judy Ron. Thursday, May 26th. It's when the ELSO verified that Dylan was in Montana via a bank account usage. Thursday the 26th was Dylan's last phone call. So that was when he called his grandmother at 6 o'clock in the morning, I think it was. I've got notes everywhere in this case. Yeah, 6:51, Dylan spoke to his grandmother and they were on the phone, but Dylan was wanting to get off because there was rain coming and he wanted to get the grain truck into the shed, I think, to get out of the rain. He was going to call his grandmother back, but that was the last actual phone call from Dylan. And at 3:41 is when they had the last ping from his phone. Now, the ping was on, I don't know if it was on his property or just out of his property, but it was around the property. And that was at 3:41 on the day he went missing. Some people have gone to Chase and thought it was Chase now, and this is just my opinion. Chase was seen at 10 p.m. on the same day at Caesars. But I don't find that, and that was 200 miles away from where the farm is, but do you know what I mean? You could still travel 200 miles and be that far away by 10 o'clock. I don't think that makes him clear of anything because we don't know the actual time that Dylan went missing or something happened to him.
Right, they would want surveillance video or something to see what time, you know, he was actually seen there.
Well, he was seen at 10 o'clock at night was when they saw Chase at the Pizza Hut. I mean, the Pizza Hut. At the Caesars, Little Caesars pizza shop.
Okay.
The last call was in the morning with the grandmother at 6:51, and that's when he was moving the grain truck. Now, we do know the grain truck when the parents arrived and everything later on, the grain truck was in the shed. So we know he has moved it in, but whether something's happened, do you know what I mean? They've confronted him after he's moved the grain truck in. You're still looking at early morning. And then Chase was seen at 10 o'clock that night, and that's what he's using as his alibi. But there's no confirmation of what time he went missing. So, do you know what I mean? It's not like we can say, okay, he went missing at 9:30, Chase was there at 10, because we don't know that. We don't.
Right.
Because really, like, we can take the phone pinging, but do you know what I mean? The last actual contact with him was at 6:51 on the 28th when he spoke to his grandmother.
Yep. And he could travel, Chase could travel 200 miles in that time, yes.
Yeah, and that's what do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that, and as I said, I'm not saying that Chase has done it. It's just possible that, do you know what I mean? If something happened,
Yep.
he could have got out of town
Yep.
and got 200 head high. Here I am.
Yep.
It wasn't me. So just in my opinion, I don't see that as him being completely innocent at this stage until we find out more. Okay, Friday, May 27th was an eyewitness. They said they had seen a sighting of him, Dylan, in Montello, but it was unconfirmed, and it's been unconfirmed by the police and the family. So it's just something on the grapevine. It has been mentioned, but do you know what I mean? There was no, once law enforcement sort of unconfirmed at that. Okay, so Saturday, right there, May 28th. So that's where I've gone on about the phone call, 3:41, and then 10 o'clock. So that was just everything I just went over. Some of the land's actually really beautiful. So Sunday, May 29th, Dylan had called the grandma. Dylan had not called the grandma back. So the grandma had reached out, and this is when Don and Jim, I don't think I have Jim's last name, but the grandmother contacted them. They went out to the farm and couldn't find Dylan. Asked them to check. Don and Jim go to the farm. Dylan is nowhere. So he's nowhere to be found, and that's when I think the grandmother starts ringing around to the family, and his parents came down to listen. I can't even write over it there. So on Monday, May 30th, Don and Jim have not been able to find Dylan. They reached back out to JD, who was, it's another JD, but that was Dylan's best friend, to see if he's heard from him. When they haven't, Dylan's parents then drive to the farm and report him missing. So when they arrive, as I said, the seed truck was backed in to the shed. Still had everything in it. Everything else at the house, the mum said, was locked, and she did say that that was really strange as well. Dylan's truck was still there. I don't know if I've got this on the next one. Okay, now that's about the searches. So Dylan's truck was still there. Now, there was two things that was brought in the truck. The mum said that didn't usually wash his truck, and it had been washed, except for in the tire rim. Is it rim or well? The tire well. There was still mud. But the rest of the truck was really clean, and that was weird because he didn't usually wash his truck. And the seat was pushed real forward. So apparently, do you know what I mean? Like when the mum's got in to drive it, as she said, she's shorter and didn't have to move the seat. So it wasn't in the same position that Dylan usually had it in. And there was something else about the car. Oh, and the four-wheel drive was switched on, and it didn't actually work in Dylan's car. So it's not like Dylan would put it into the four-wheel drive. So there was definitely some red flags when they seen that. They did have to break into it. Yep.
With the four-wheel drive not being on, I would think or with it, did you say it was switched on or switched off? I forgot which one.
It was switched on. It didn't work in the car.
Okay. I would think he's still in that desert area somewhere.
Mm. See, I don't know if someone's drove it or if someone was if they've been trying to clean it to get stuff out of the car, they might have pushed the seat forward and left it in that
Yeah.
forward position. But yeah, for the four-wheel drive to be switched on.
Yeah.
when Dylan
And the
goes-
seat forward could also be if he was in the back and somebody had to get him out, they would have pushed the seat forward to slide him out and then forgot about it.
Mm.
I mean, I'm just thinking of theories. That's only in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I know. As I said, this is all I've had going through my head is this case. So, now they did find Dylan's boots, and they were about 100 yards from where the grain truck was. Again, I've heard two things. I've heard one where they were just thrown on the ground, and another one where they were placed neatly. So, Jimmy, I'm not sure exactly which one it is, but I do know that they were behind a hill. So that one was just talking about all the searches that they've done.
And by the way, it does say here that Chase has been totally cleared.
Hang on, I've just got my son here for a second, 2 seconds. Sorry, one of the rare moments my son wanted to come and give me some affection.
Uh-oh.
He's done something, I'm sure. Okay, so this one here shows you where the grain truck was to where the boots were found. As I said, it was about 100 miles, I think you used to use, don't you? So on Thursday, June 2nd, the family is told that they found a drop of blood on the boots. Now, the mother said it was blood, and apparently it wasn't a lot, but the father also mentioned that it could have been some hydraulic fluid on the boots because it also gives a red semblance. So I know that they have been sent away. The boots took about a week to be sent away because I don't think the police took it as serious right at the start. So I'm sure we'll hear whether it was blood or not, but at the moment it is confirmed that there was a spot of blood on the boots. And that's another thing. If they've done something, do you know what I mean? Just that little bit of blood it's another, in my opinion, why it hasn't happened at the grain truck, because there'd be more of a scene if something had happened there.
Now, keep in mind, the mother said this was his only pair of boots. If he got another pair, it was the exact same pair, but he wouldn't buy any other shoes.
Yeah.
So they had to have been taken off his feet at some point because he didn't have anything else to wear.
And when you look at the area out there too, it's not exactly an area that you would be going into without your shoes on either.
Right, because the desert has a lot of spurs and prickers and everything, scorpions.
And even in this picture, you can just see it's just nothing.
Right. And I live in the middle of the desert, so yeah.
Yeah. What else have I put down there? So Saturday, June 4th was when Chase was arrested, but that wasn't related to Dylan. He's still is he still in custody now?
Yes, he is still in custody.
Okay. Sunday, June 5th, the family was given permission by the Bessos, what's the other place, to take the pickup truck from the farm without being fingerprinted. So that was another big thing too, that they just let them take the truck straight away without actually having it tested. I know the mother did drive home and then she took the truck in, I believe. I know it's been taken in now, but I think it was Candace that actually ended up having to take the truck in to have it fingerprinted. What again was just, do you know what I mean, signs that the police weren't taking it serious.
Right. I was just going to say that. They've dropped the ball on so many things in this case. Oh, they're saying I got to move out of the desert then in the chat.
So Dylan's June 6th was when Dylan's boots were finally taken in by the police, and that's another thing. For a week they sat in the back of the squad car and not taken in. And I do got to say too, the first week when nothing was being done, I've got to give my heart to Candace because she was pushing every single angle, whether it had been social media, running the Facebook page. They had Mob Squad out there helping. Do you know what I mean? It was a lot of YouTubers going out to help because the police weren't doing anything. And as a mother, she was just pushing. I've got to, do you mean I give her my heart because I'm sure we would all be like that if our child was out in the middle of nowhere and we didn't know where they were.
Yep, and that's what you're supposed to do, and that's what makes more than half of these cases so mind-boggling. Yeah. Because most parents don't care like Candace does.
No, and like, do you know what I mean? There's obviously when we get around the streets, you hear all sides of it, and I've heard sides, do you know what I mean, of people that aren't supportive of Candace, and saying that she wasn't in Dylan's life, but that doesn't make a difference, do you know what I mean? I don't care if, like, my daughter lives away, and if I hadn't seen her in 6 months, if something happened to her, I would be there. I would be pushing and trying to find anything. So even if there was, do you know what I mean, some distance between Dylan and his mother, they still spoke regularly on the phone. So he still had that respect for his mum. And as I said, yeah, she's been out there and she's been the main one pushing. The father has been there as well, but you don't hear a lot from him. It's more Candace I've seen.
And see, with the mother living away from him, that doesn't make her a murderer or a kidnapper. You know? People are saying that because they didn't have, I mean, they had a relationship, just not a personal, like, close relationship. It doesn't make her a murderer, you know?
Well, that's what I mean. My daughter lives 2 states, like she's 16 hours drive from me, but it doesn't change how I feel just because there's distance there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And my kids live 3,000 miles away from me.
Yeah.
You know, but it doesn't mean I'm going to kill anybody.
But if something happens, you'd be right there to support and help and find them. And do you know what I mean? That's what Candace is doing. And it's so hard because we've seen mothers like the other Candace from Summer's case who has done nothing to help law enforcement or push anything. And then you see, do you know what I mean, Candace doing everything she's doing now. It's just, and she hasn't stopped. This lady has not. Do you know what I mean? Because I've been watching the case, as I said, it's all I've been watching lately. This mum just has not stopped all the way. Oh.
Okay. So I kicked my own butt out of here.
So this was just back to the week 2, organising search, looking for particulars. So it was about week 2. They were still using volunteers. As I said, most of the volunteers were some YouTube channels. I do know Monsters Under the Bed went out with their drone and was doing it, and there was some other YouTube channels taking their drones out as well. And they've been sending them to some specialists, what's been getting like right down to the pictures. I don't know if they're still using them because of the FBI coming in now. Have you heard? Or
I've heard that they are coming in, but I don't know if they'll still let YouTubers come in and drone or not.
Yeah.
Because they've got ground penetrating radar.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know Monster Behind the Bed was sending all of their drone footage in to the specialist to have it checked, but I don't know about the other YouTube channels that were droning out there. I know there was like 3 or 4 at one stage helping them. So June 14th, it's when the Bonneville County took Dylan's pickup truck. So Candace verified that. Again, that's when she dropped. They didn't actually come and pick up the truck. She drove the truck into them and made them take it into evidence. Wednesday, June 15th was when...
If she drove that truck in, that will contaminate any evidence on that steering wheel.
Yeah, I know, but they just let her take it from the property. That's why she took it straight to the Bonneville County in Idaho, because she drove it home, and I don't have how far away they lived from the property.
Right. Okay.
Them take it into evidence.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, she would have. I mean, there would have been some DNA, but I'm sure they're still. Again, she's just trying to give them everything so that they've got everything. Wednesday, June 15th, the investigation's classified as criminal. So that was when the FBI came in. They officially became involved, and there was a press release about that as well. Saturday, June 18th, both of Dylan's campers were taken into police custody. Now, I think I have it wrote down. I think his phone and wallet was missing. I'm not sure. I think it was his wallet and his phone was missing though. And his gun. He did have, his phone, his wallet, and a handgun. So he did have a handgun that was in the truck. And that wasn't in the truck, and it wasn't in his property. We do know, as I said, that the phone pinged in the afternoon, but it was missing, and so was his wallet. And they haven't been found yet either.
That's so depressing with that gun not being found.
And that's another thing too. Like, do you know what I mean? If someone has come to the grain shed and taken him, do you know what I mean? They could have even been using his own weapon on him if they've got it out of the truck.
Yeah, and that's the scary part. And his mom seems like such a nice lady. I do not suspect her at all.
No.
And this is going to be heartbreaking for her.
Yeah. No, I think some people have been really hard on Candace because, as I said, she's just been pushing all the way, doing even what we would do. So that was the end of... So where did we get to? I'm just going to look at the last date I had. It was June 18th. So I did finish that there, but did I have any more notes? Because we had... No, so what was it, about 3 days ago, I think, that we had James Brennan was arrested, because there was a couple of days there where there wasn't any.
Yes, and it was on weapons charges because he's not allowed to own weapons because of his past.
I'm
Oh,
going to try and bring it up. I do have.
but I would have thought if he had Dylan's weapon, and I'm sorry, I think there's still an echo, but if he had Dylan's weapon, I think they would have known by now.
Well, he did have a weapon, but it was I'm bringing up the arrest papers. Okay, so these are the arrest papers for James. So, yeah, he was done for having a firearm, what was a 22 caliber as well, and some muzzle holders. Now, by what I've understand, he was squatting on the property in another camper, and the gun and the muzzle holders were in there when the police searched it, and that's what they've arrested him for.
Yes, because in Nevada, you cannot have muzzle loaders being a felon. Some states you can, but not Nevada.
So I think he had 3. I've got. So on May 30th, 2022, Box Elder County Dispatch received a call on missing 19-year-old. I'm just reading it straight from the affidavit because that's too small for me to read. So I just can't see the screen while I'm reading this. But on May 30th, yeah, so he was last seen at Lucerne. The subject in the case, an adult male named James Brenner, had ownership in the land parcels mentioned above and is squatting in a trailer located on the land. The missing 19-year-old's property is 5-mile walk towards the southeast of where Brenner was currently living. Brenner and another Lucerne resident, what was DH, and that's Don, was considered family friends of Dylan's and his family's. In searching for the missing 19-year-old, Brenner was interviewed by BECSO, what's the law enforcement, on June 5th, 2022. Don had subsequently interviewed by law enforcement as well. On and above about June 11th, 2022 was when Box Elder County, in the search for missing 19-year-old, requested assistance from the Federal Bureau. June 16th was the FBI search warrant on the trailer where Brennan was living. During the search was the ammunition, ignition caps, black powder, and seed loads, all related to the muzzle loading, were located and photographed in the trailer, but the items were not seized at the time. There were muzzle loader firearms located in the trailer at the time. So it didn't actually say how many, but I thought I seen there was 3 of the muzzle loaders. And he's still locked up as well. So, do you know what I mean? 2 of the people that were around Dylan are locked up, but both of them have been on different charges. And just one more thing I wanted to show.
Yes, and the biggest thing is the truck is the most important to the cops, which they're not doing their job. They've dropped the ball on a lot of things. But the truck is the most suspicious. And we know that, shoot, what was his name? Chase. We know he was by my notes, he was totally cleared.
He's been cleared only because he was at the pizza shop at 10 o'clock. So, do you know what I mean? Again.
Now, could they change that, though, if they find out that it was a different time?
They could.
Okay.
Yeah. See, so the next day after the parents got there, Chase did meet up with Candace. Candace is the one that has cleared him because he was at the pizza shop. And that's going back to what I was saying earlier. We don't actually have a time, because if something did happen to Dylan while he was, do you know what I mean, putting the seed truck in or something, we're talking about 8 o'clock in the morning. Do you know what I mean? Someone could have easily gone that distance.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right there.
And he wasn't cleared by law enforcement. It was only by Candace.
Oh.
And the other thing I found, like, that really, so there's also stories about Kurt being a cross-dresser, and not that this really, do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but the concern is he was a 60-year-old man that was hanging around Dylan in this police thing. I don't think Kurt actually worked. They might have done some jobs together, but I don't think he actually worked on his farm. Where was I going with that? He was very close. They didn't work together. Dylan stayed. And Dylan did stay with Kurt as well, because there was no water on the property, or there was no shower water. I don't know if he had water to irrigate with, but there was no shower water. So Dylan would stay with Kurt. Now, I know I've seen a lot of, as I said, because I've had my head in a lot of interviews, a lot of the locals have been coming out, but the Wadsworths have been staying very quiet. There was one channel that Kurt did do an interview on, but it was very sheltered questions, if that makes sense. Like, I mean, it was not much to do with the case, and what was said about the case is stuff that we already knew. Yeah, and there's been no sort of, I haven't seen any other interviews from the Wadsworths at all.
I haven't been able to figure out what the cross-dressing has to do with it. It just makes no sense to me, but then you think of the serial killers that dressed up as women, you know?
I think they're trying to show the kind of people, because, do you know what I mean? Kurt wasn't the only one. Obviously, there was the ones that were in this policing vigilant group, do you know what I mean? They've all been seen cross-dressing. They've all been seen hanging out at the saddle saw, and that was another big thing too with the saddle saw. They are known to be selling drugs out of the saddle saw as well. That came from one of the ladies. So there's a lady that lives across from the saddle saw that actually owns it, Ellen Berg, and her son Dylan. They were on another one. They own the saddle saw, but Kurt rents it off them. Now, apparently the saddle saw, what I've heard, is it's only open 1 day a week, and I find that really weird, because how does a business get enough income, especially in a town that you've got 70 people, if they're only opening 1 day a week?
Yeah, that made no sense to me. I mean, how many people do you get out of 70 people that drink enough to make a business run? One day a week.
So I think it's more just with Dylan hanging around them. Do you know what I mean? If they're cross-dressing and they're in their 60s, there would be grooming going on, and that too. To me personally, I don't think it's an area that a teenager that young should be hanging out.
Yeah, they're too old for him to be hanging out with.
Yeah. Dylan, according to Candace, wears blue jeans and a flannelette shirt. Yeah. He did sound like a creature of habit. Do you know what I mean? He'd wear the same clothes,
buy the same boots.
Yeah.
And she said they had to be identical. He knew right where to get them, and he knew that they were exactly the same.
She also said that, like, she collected them, and when I heard that, I thought that was, do you know what I mean, as a mother, that's kind of cute, having the same shoes all the way growing up, and that she used to keep his old ones. I know I've done that with clothes, but I've never thought about it with shoes, because none of my kids will wear the shoes over and over.
Right. Well, I'd keep them to show the size of their feet at that time. I don't know. That's me. I'm sentimental.
But you think about it too, having the same shoe, like you could put, I don't know. My mum mind just goes to that.
I understand.
But yeah. So that's about all I had. So I do want to do another part on this. Obviously there's still stuff coming out and still stuff that we've heard bits and pieces and that. So maybe a couple more days and we'll do part 2 on Tabby's channel. So
and I do apologize, Aussie. My week has been terrible. I've not been feeling too well, and that's why, you know, we kept missing each other. But part 2, we will get together hopefully, and we'll get this, you know.
As I said, I've been flat out because I've had my medical panels. My daughter went to the dentist yesterday, what wasn't expected, and yeah, so life gets in the way sometimes. But we will keep everyone, do you know what I mean? We'll have it advertised on both our channels, and sometime within the next week we'll get back together and have a part 2 for everybody on Beautiful Tabby's channel. I did have your channel going in Nightbot, but because we've had to stop it, I know the mods have been dropping it as well. And Tabby's channel is also in my description for this one. So please make sure you add her up and we can get part 2 going. And thank you so much, Tabby, for joining me.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for coming.
You all have a happy 4th of July.
Yes, happy 4th of July to everyone over the waters. I forget about it because we don't have it in Australia. But
right.
July to everyone over the waters, all my friends. Thank you so much, everybody.